Hi gang. Wanted to share a video on how I made an access panel for my model, and I've been using this technique a couple times now. It seems to work very well. This is going to be for, again, access panels where you want to get inside the model for electronics or to show interior detail. And the problem most people have, and I have had, is that no matter how carefully you cut out your access panel, you're going to have this gap. You can see in this model here, I've cut out a sunroof area. And this is the piece I used to cut out. And even as close and taking as with micro saws and everything else, you can see here the bit of a gap that I have. And while we can try to do, fill this gap in with putties and everything else, I think I found a little better way. And what I'm going to be using is a blue stuff molding material, which I will go into show each detail a little closer. And then using epoxy resins to make the actual part. And also using a contact paper. There's just a shelf liner clear contact paper. And I'll show you how I was able to do all of this. And the main difference here is I'm using the blue stuff to make a master of the part that I want to fit inside this panel. I have already done this with my pop-up headlights. You can see here how I used this technique and how close the gaps are on that. And with these particular parts, instead of using the clear contact paper over the headlight covers, I just used a Scotch tape. But the principle's still the same, so depending on how big an access panel or the complex shape, you can use contact paper, you can use a clear Scotch tape, or even a acetate, clear acetate, and put that over it. So we'll go over the techniques here, and I will show you what we come up with. Okay, first step, after you've already cut out your area that you want to create the access panel for, finished it, so I've smoothed down the edges the way I want them. Same on the opposite, the back side here. So we are all set to make our mold. I'm going to take a small piece of the contact paper, cut to size. And again, you want clear. And the reason you're going to want clear is because you're going to be able to look for bubbles when you push the blue stuff into the material here. By the way, the blue stuff that I'm talking about is this right here. This is the type of molding that you can get from Green Stuff World. It's reusable. You just cut off as much as you need, put it in hot water, it becomes moldable. What I have found with this, and where the secret lies for me, was that you can take this, make a master of an opening, and you can freeze it. And when you freeze this blue stuff, it doesn't shrink or expand at all. So we'll end up making a mold, making a master piece that's going to fill this hole, put it in the freezer, and then we're going to use that as a master to make our mold. So first we're going to put this clear adhesive or shelf paper on this model. And this is a fairly simple shape. I mean, it's a flat panel, so it makes it pretty easy. But if you have complex shapes, then you might want to look at, again, using acetate or multiple levels, layers of this type of tape. And the whole purpose of this is just to give it a general outline. So I'm going to make it as tight as possible. And because it's adhesive, it makes it nice and simple to, once you get it right, it'll stay in place. Okay, another thing I can also end up doing is just use your board here a little bit, a flat surface, to make sure that this is adhered as close as possible to the edging here. And I even fold this down a little bit to keep it from peeling up. The blue stuff has been sitting in hot water for the recommended time, so we're all set now. I'm using popsicle sticks because it gets a little hot to deal with otherwise. But now that it's soft and malleable, we will go ahead and put it in our opening here. And I'm just going to use my fingers to spread it out into the opening. Don't worry about the excess, because what will happen is after we freeze it, we're going to trim it all down. The main thing we want to do right now is try to get it as smooth as possible into the shape. This makes it nice. This white plastic on this model makes it easy so you can tell when you're getting it pretty close to your edge there. And I'm just going to keep working it here. And then this is why you want to see the clear on this side, so you can see if you've got any bubbles or any area here that where it's not quite pressed up against. So make sure I've got the corners pressed in tight. So we're pressed in real tight against all the edges here. So again, we're looking pretty good, looking at different angles there. Feel it from the top just lightly. Make sure that it feels smooth. Now what we'll do is, while it's still setting, while it's still in the mold, or in the whole area there, I'm going to go and put this in the freezer, and that'll lock it down and make it very rigid, solid, so then I can trim as necessary. And you probably wouldn't need to trim quite as much if you got a smaller piece. I'm still getting used to this blue stuff, so I used a little more than was necessary here. But that's okay, because again, I'll trim off the excess and we'll go from there. Actually, what I can do, while it's still somewhat moldable, is just cut the excess off right now. Save me a little bit of time. And this, again, beautiful part is it can all be reused. All right, one more time to take a look at our fit here. We're looking pretty good there. One more time pressing. It's still, it stays malleable for a little while, so got some time to play with it. Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead and put it in the freezer. The mold has been, and the model has been sitting in a freezer for approximately 30 minutes. So this allows the blue stuff to get hard and loses some of its flexibility. So now what we'll do is we're just going to peel off the contact paper. and it's just a matter of pressing out from the opposite side. There we go. All right, this is now my master. Okay, and you can see right now it's fairly stiff, but it's going to soften up quite quickly. And again, you can see with the fit, when it's in place, you don't have any of those gaps. So what we'll end up doing then is this piece is going to go back in the freezer for another 30 minutes or so. I might even make it an hour just so it's really as hard as I can possibly get it. Then I'm going to make another mold with blue stuff, and then this will be pressed into it to make my master. And then from there we'll start casting some pieces and you can see how it comes out. Okay, we're ready to mold this piece here, or create a mold. So the blue stuff has been sitting in for about 3 minutes inside some boiling water here. I'm going to use this small little lid that was just from a application for, a Q-tip applicator. And the main reason I'm going to use this little cover here is so that when I put the blue stuff in there, it doesn't just spread out too far. It kind of keeps it contained. I've also got a couple blue ice here right now. That's just to keep my master cold, so until I'm ready to use it. I'm also using the cutout piece from the sunroof, and I'm just kind of using that. I'll use that to press the master into the mold, and that way it'll keep it pretty much the same bow to match the roof. So let's go ahead and take the blue stuff out, and we'll put it into the mold, or into the lid here. I've got to work fairly quickly, mainly as I want to keep it flat as much as possible. Okay, now we're going to take the master and we're just going to press it in. Trying to make it, press it in as level as possible, so that way when I pour in the clear resin, it won't end up being a little thicker on one side than the other. We'll give this some time to set, and then I'll separate it, and we'll see how that turns out. The mold has been sitting for a few, and it's cooled down to room temperature now. So I'm going to pull it out of the tray here. I've got some flexibility. We're going to pop the master out. Okay, that peeled out the master. Again, I'm going to set this down nice and on a flat surface there to make sure it stays correct angle. There's my master still retained its shape. It didn't deform because of the heat. That's because I kept it cold as I pressed it in. So the next step is I will make up some clear resin, pour it in, and I'll continue this video as I pop it out and we take a look at what I get. All right, we are ready to undo the mold here, see what we come up with. There's our new piece. And this resin is still a little flexible, which I think will actually work out okay because I'll be able to shape it, polish it, get it the way I want it to. But this is what I wanted to show. And that is that with it now in place, there's your access panel. You've got no gaps in the side here. Let's see if I can take this up a little bit. Now again, I'm making this for a moon roof, but if I were going to use this for an access panel, it would be opaque. Could make it out of milliput putty or opaque resin. And this is what it looks like underneath here. Get the wires out of the way. So it's even got a little bit of a lip here, which again I will go ahead and trim down when I'm done, with this, and I will polish it up and then add a smoke tint to it, and that'll be my moon roof for this vehicle. But again, the main thing, we'll look from different angles here, and that is that you can see, trying to get the light to bounce off of it, there are no gaps. So I hope this procedure will help you make the access panels for your model and give you another tool for your tool belt there.